are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, December 16th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back, I'm thinking we're in the second segment, but we're going to start off the show by talking about the Bills and their win over the Lions and the high-scoring game that was. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Eagles and their win over the Steelers in the Battle of Pennsylvania. We'll also talk about Patrick Mahomes and his ankle injury that he suffered in the Chiefs' win over the Browns. We'll talk about the Packers and their win over the Seahawks. And then in the final part of the show, we will preview the two Monday night games that we have. We have the Vikings and the Bears, and the Falcons and the Raiders. Apologize if I was a little late getting on today. So I did start streaming, and then all of a sudden, my laptop disconnected from my Wi-Fi, and I was trying to reconnect it while I was still recording, but it wasn't helping me out, so I had to shut down my computer and turn it back on. So we're all good now, so I apologize for that. But anyways, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Lions and the Bills. And remember when I said I didn't expect it to be a 44-42 game? I was wrong. Now, I was wrong in terms of it being lower scoring because there ended up being more points scored in this game than there were in the game last week when the Bills took on the Rams. And the final score of this game ended up being 48-42. Very high scoring. Like I said, more points scored in this game than the game last week that we got when the Bills ended up losing that game. And the Lions, they kind of took on the role of the Bills from last week where they were kind of playing catch-up the whole game. And they ended up losing. This was their second loss of the season. Although the Lions, did keep it close in the first half. It was 21-14 in the first half. But the Bills kind of pulled away, and they were up 38-21 at one point. Then it was 45-28 at another point. Lions ended up scoring a touchdown towards the end of the game to make it 48-42. But the Bills, they ended up recovering the onside kick, and it looked like for a moment that maybe the Lions recovered it, but ultimately the Bills did. They ended up winning the game. Now, Dan Campbell got some criticism because they went for an onside kick another time during the game. And, the game was still kind of close. There was 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And the Lions ended up going for an onside kick. Now, Matt Collins recovered it, and he looked like he was going to return it for a touchdown. He ended up getting tackled short of the goal line. But then Josh Allen immediately threw a touchdown pass to Davis, and that made it 45-28. And Dan Campbell received some heat on that because, again, there was still some time left in the game, plenty of time left in the game, and you gave the Bills great field position, and they scored a touchdown immediately. And these are the kind of things that have me concerned about the Lions going into the playoffs, is decisions like that, combined with, going for it on fourth down last week against the Packers at your own 30. That's going to, hurt you in the playoffs if it doesn't pan out. Because these better teams, and the Bills are a team that you could put in that Super Bowl tier. You can't do that against these teams because you're going to end up hurting yourself. And the Bills capitalized on it immediately, and Josh Allen scored a touchdown right after they had that big return on the onside kick. And Josh Allen, once again, was fantastic. Didn't have 6 touchdowns in this game, but I believe he had 4 total touchdowns in this game. Another solid performance from him. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns, and he threw for 362 yards. He's the MVP right now. And on the season, he has 25 touchdowns to 5 picks. And no turnovers in this game. And he should have had a touchdown pass. I forget who it was. I think it was to one of the tight ends. But it was like a jump shot. It was like he was taking a jump shot and flicked it to one of the tight ends. And it got called back, I think, because of holding. But he was making plays constantly. And both defenses were banged up in this game. The Lions just continue to lose guys left and right on the defensive side of the ball. The Bills, their secondary was banged up. So, it was important that the Lions, were perfect on offense and they didn't make any mistakes. But the Bills' defense early on, they were getting to Jared Goff. They were putting pressure on him. And the Bills were going up and down the field. So, like I said, the Lions were playing catch-up. But ultimately, it wasn't enough. For the most part, I thought, the Bills did a good job. They limited the running game of the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs actually had a big day receiving the ball. He had 83 yards receiving and a touchdown. But the Bills' defense, they held the Lions to 48 rushing yards. Now, part of that is because, again, the Lions were playing from behind pretty much the whole game. They never had a lead. But, early on, they were shutting down David Montgomery. He had 5 carries for 4 yards. This Lions rushing attack is arguably the best in the league. And the Bills, I thought, did a good job at limiting that. But through the air, Jared Goff had almost 500 yards passing. He had 494 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. He went 38 of 59. And it's kind of funny because Adam Schefter, he tweeted something about this, that the Lions, they lost a game where Jared Goff threw 5 touchdown passes, but they also won a game that he threw 5 interceptions, which is interesting to think about. But big day for the Lions pass catchers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a 66-yard touchdown in this game, 14 receptions for 193 yards and a touchdown. Sam Laporta, 7 for 111. Like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs had 5 for 83 and a touchdown. Jamison Williams had a touchdown in this game, 3 for 37 and a touchdown. Tim Patrick, 4 for 30 and a touchdown. They also did have an offensive lineman score a touchdown, Dan Skipper, 1 touchdown in this game. He had 1 reception for 9 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown actually did lose a fumble in this game. No sacks of Josh Allen in this game for the Lions defense. Jake Bates missed a field goal at one point, 0 for 1 on the day. Went 6 for 6 on extra points. Tyler Bass also missed a field goal in this game as well. But Josh Allen, 23 of 34, 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. James Cook, I did say, James Cook used that ground game if you're the Bills, and they did. They ran the ball for almost 200 yards in this game. James Cook had 105 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 68 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Ray Davis had 15 yards. Ty Johnson, he actually ended up being their leading receiver in this game. 5 receptions for 114 yards. Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, they were back in this game. They made a couple of big catches. Keon Coleman had 1 catch for 64 yards. Dalton Kincaid, 4 for 53. Dawson Knox, 2 for 42. He had a clutch catch in this game. Khalil Shakir had 6 for 39 and a touchdown. Bills defense, 3 sacks of Jared Goff. And Tyler Bass, like I said, 2 for 3 on field goals. He went 6 for 6 on extra points as well. And the Bills, they improve to 11-3 on the season. The Lions, they drop to 2-12. And, they got to be careful, the Lions, because, they got a few tough games down the stretch. A divisional game against the Bears. The 49ers are banged up offensively. They got their guys back on defense, but, I think the Lions should still win that game, but I think the division, the NFC North, it could come down to that last game of the season against the Vikings. Because the Vikings tonight, they play the Bears. I think they should win that, but you never know. The Bears, they played all their divisional opponents tough this year, so we'll see what happens. But the Vikings, their remaining games, they take on the Seahawks, who might have lost Geno Smith for a couple of weeks, and then they take on the Packers again at home, and then they take on the Lions. So, again, could come down to that last game of the season, which I hope it does, because that would be a very exciting Sunday Night Football matchup to end off the season. But for the Lions, look, at some point they were going to lose. And I did say, I said last week that they were due for a loss against the Packers. They ended up winning that on a game-winning field goal. Here I thought, all right, the Bills coming off of a loss, I don't think they're going to lose 2 in a row. The Lions are due for a loss here. And that's what ended up happening. But, they got to get healthy. They got to get healthy on defense. I mean, their offense, again, can still put up points with anybody. And, Jared Goff, slow start he had in the beginning, but, he ended up putting together a great performance, 5 touchdown passes, but it just wasn't enough. Josh Allen is the MVP right now. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens down the stretch here. Right now, I would say the Bills are probably going to get the 2 seed, depending on what happens with the Chiefs, and we'll get into them later in the show. But I think that's what they're going to be locked into. And it's going to be tough if you're, a wild card team, or, if you're some of these other divisional winners, if you have to go and play Buffalo in that weather, and if you have to play Josh Allen the way he's playing right now, because he's the MVP. And Lamar Jackson, he was solid yesterday. He had 5 touchdown passes against the Giants, but at this point, Josh Allen is the front runner for the MVP, and he continues to build his case up as we move towards the end of the regular season here. Again, another solid performance for him. And like I said, I think the Bills, right now, the 2 seed is where they're going to end up settling, I think, barring a collapse by the Chiefs here, which I don't think is going to happen because they continue to find ways to win. It wasn't pretty yesterday for them against the Browns, but they got the win. And like I said, we'll get into that game later in the show. And the Steelers ended up losing, so that actually helped the Bills. They're not tied now, so we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Steelers and the Eagles, their matchup from yesterday and how that went down. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now talk about the Eagles and their win over the Steelers. There was a lot of drama going into, really, there was a lot of drama in Philly during the week. You had the situation with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and how, A.J. Brown's just not happy with the offense. And both guys said that, everything's good, but, people aren't believing that. And look, I said on the show last week, I just think it's a guy that wants to be more impactful during the game, wants to get the ball more. And, we've seen that plenty of times watching football all our lives. So that was my take on it. And the other thing, too, is it's fine as long as they're winning games. Like, they'll figure it out. But if they start losing games and you have this situation happening, it's not going to be good. Because we saw what happened with the Eagles last year when things unraveled. We don't want that. I mean, they don't want it to happen again with a situation like this. But anyways, so A.J. Brown, he was involved yesterday. He was involved. You had 2 receivers on the Eagles go for over 100 yards in this game. A.J. Brown had 8 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith had 11 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown as well. And Jalen Hurts, 290 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. So, I said it. Other people in the media were saying it as well. We got to see this passing game be better. And Jalen Hurts, first thing he said in the media, when he got to his press conference, I think he said something along the lines of, "Is that what you guys wanted?" or something along the lines of that. And yeah, no, he was good yesterday. And the Eagles' running game wasn't, it wasn't bad, but it was, they still had over 100 yards rushing. Saquon Barkley only had 65 yards on the ground. Jalen Hurts had 45 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell had 20 yards on the ground. But, they did enough. And the Steelers, look, this is kind of a game that shows me what could happen in the playoffs. Because this could have been a statement win for them. And they did hang around for a little bit. The defense, did the best they could. But ultimately, the Eagles are just a better team here. Now, the Steelers, they were kind of shorthanded yesterday because they didn't have George Pickens, and they definitely missed him in this game. And the Steelers had opportunities in this game as well. But there was the turning point of the game was in the second half. It was 20-13 Eagles. And Russell Wilson completes a pass to Calvin Austin for 31 yards. They get down to the Eagles' 26-yard line. And actually, no, Russell Wilson ended up fumbling on that. But Najee Harris also had a fumble too. And I'm trying to see where. Maybe it was was it in the fourth quarter? I thought it was this. Oh, actually no. So I guess that counted as the Russell Wilson fumble. It was a bad exchange between Russell Wilson and Najee Harris. Najee never had the ball, and it just bounced off of him, and it rolled, and the Eagles ended up recovering it. And they could have tied the game there. So instead, then the Eagles take that. They go 13 plays, 74 yards down the field, and Jalen Hurts, scores from 1 yard out the tush push to make it 27-13, and that was really it. But also from that game as well, and this was across the league too, you had T.J. Watt getting hurt in this game towards the end. He rolled his ankle, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be long-term. I'm seeing some headlines here. Not long-term, probably good for playoffs at least. But that's the last thing the Steelers need right now. T.J. Watt is so important to this defense, and you see how the defense plays when he's not out there. They're a completely different unit. And I've said since I started doing these shows is he's the quarterback of the defense. And you saw, and I just saw when he forced a fumble yesterday, Jalen Hurts was scrambling around, and T.J. Watt was like away from the play, and then all of a sudden he comes over and just knocks the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands, and the Steelers ended up recovering that. I mean, he's a one-man wrecking crew. But, if the Steelers lose him for an extended period of time, and especially with the schedule that they got coming up, because you have a very important game with the Ravens next week, because now they picked up a game on you. The Steelers are 10-4, Ravens are 9-5. Can't lose that game, and that's in Baltimore. The Ravens could definitely overtake the Steelers for the division. And then after that, you got the Chiefs. Now, we'll see what happens with Patrick Mahomes and whether he's going to be playing in that game or not. I would think he is going to, but we'll see. And then you got the Bengals to finish up the season at home. That's a tough 3-game stretch there. So, the Steelers, they're going to have to figure it out if it's without TJ Watt. But, yeah, so to kind of go through it, Eagles went up 3-0 early in the game. They scored 3 points on their first possession. Steelers punted on their second possession. Actually, they punted on their first 3 possessions, really. They did end up getting points because the Eagles fumbled on the punt. Cooper DeJean ended up fumbling, so they turned that into 3 points. That made it 3-3. But then the Eagles, they went right down the field, scored a touchdown to make it 10-3. Then they were up 17-3. Steelers then put together an 11-play, 70-yard drive. Russell Wilson connected with Pat Freiermuth. He continues to produce. Eagles then punted, and then the Steelers got 3 points before the end of the half. Chris Boswell, a 49-yard field goal. So the Steelers were still in this game. But then the Eagles went up 20-13. The Najee Harris fumble happens, and that kind of just changed the game. Eagles then capitalized on that to make it 27-13, and then nothing happened in the fourth quarter. Steelers got shut out in the second half. And again, this is something that I worry about going into the playoffs, because when you play some of these better teams, you can't have this happen. And if the Steelers have to go on the road in the playoffs, I really don't give them a good chance. I don't, because you're probably going to have to go up against... Well, if they could at least get a home playoff game, like if they could somehow hold on and win this division, then I give them at least a chance to move on to the next round. But if you got to be a wild card team, I don't trust them. I don't trust them in the playoffs, because if they got to go on the road, if they're the top, let's say if they're the top wild card team, you're probably playing. You're playing the Texans. That's a tough game. The Texans, they won yesterday, but that offense is kind of taking a step back this year. Well, C.J. Stroud's taking a little bit of a step back this year. So you could win that. But, if you got to go on the road against Buffalo or Kansas City, I just don't see them winning. I don't see them winning. So it's important that the Steelers hold on and, get this 3 seed here. Keep the division lead in their hands, because if they're a wild card team, we could see more of the same like we've seen in years past. And like I've said, I think they could beat everybody. I think they could beat anybody, but I think they could lose to anybody. But the Eagles, they're just a better team. That's really all you could say. At this point, they're just a better team. And, I think it was very important that, they got this win how they got it, because it wasn't relying on Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley didn't have a monster game. He had a couple of good runs, but, Saquon's not going to have a good game every week. So it's going to be up to Jalen Hurts and these pass catchers to get it going, and they did yesterday against a good Steelers defense. It's a good Steelers defense that they're playing against, and they got it done. So if they could do that in the playoffs, they could go all the way. Even with the passing game struggling like it has, I still believe that they can. And now you're tied with the Lions for the 1 seed. And the Lions right now are vulnerable. They're banged up on defense, so, they could maybe drop another game. Who knows? But Eagles just got to keep stacking those wins. And they still got the Giants one more time. They got the Commanders. I forget who else they play. I have to look up who else they play. But, the Eagles, they should, finish with... Okay, so they actually, they had the Cowboys. That's right. All right, so they finish up against the NFC East. 2 out of the 3 games they're at home. Commanders are playing better. Jaden Daniels, well, he looked good in the first half, but then kind of got shut down in the second half, and the Saints actually almost came back and won that game. But Eagles should finish with at least 14 wins. Maybe they go 3-0 to finish out the season, get to 15-2. The Commanders game is the toughest game left on the schedule. but I think they should at least go 2-1. They could definitely go 3-0, but I'm going to say at least 2-1. But if they go 3-0 and the Lions drop another game, all of a sudden, Super Bowl goes through Philly. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But that was a big win for them. Again, got the passing game going. Jalen Hurts, look, what are you going to do on that fumble? It's TJ Watt. He's incredible. But, no, that was a good win. And the other thing, too, is the defense. That's been a major part of this success for the Eagles this year, is their defense, which I said was going to be a unit that was going to improve this year. And, the draft picks and free agency, and some of the younger players developing, it's worked. And also the change of defensive coordinator, it's worked. It's a solid unit. This is a solid team. And they definitely could go all the way and they can win the whole thing. I really do believe that. It would not shock me if we see the Eagles playing in February. And I said going into the year that with the addition of Barkley, improving the defense, and of course what you still have already there, with all the talent on offense, this team could be as good as it was a couple years ago. And right now, looks like they might finish with a record even better than a couple years ago. So we'll see how it goes, but that was an important win for them. A.J. Brown, right after he scored the touchdown, he went and celebrated with Jalen Hurts to show everybody, like, hey, everything's good. Because that's what, people do. They try to, take things and, make stories. And there probably is stuff going on. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. Now, again, if the Eagles started losing games, then, yeah, this would be magnified. But they're winning games, and yesterday everybody was happy. A.J. Brown contributed, got Devontae Smith back, which is huge. You've had him back the last couple games, but just still, having both of those guys on the field at the same time is very important. And Jalen Hurts played well. So, all around, good win for them. Steelers got to get back in the win column next week. It's a big game with the Ravens. That's on Saturday. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Patrick Mahomes' injury. We'll talk about the Chiefs' win over the Browns and what the concern level is for the Mahomes injury. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Browns-Chiefs game, as well as talking about the Patrick Mahomes injury and update you guys on that. Now, the Chiefs once again picked up a win. They won 21-7 against the Browns. And, I mean, this game was just never really competitive. The Chiefs really didn't have to do much offensively to get the win here because Jameis Winston was not good yesterday. The Browns as a team were not good yesterday either. You had a lot of turnovers from them. I think there was at least 4 turnovers. Jameis had 3 interceptions, ended up getting benched. Him and Will Levis both got benched yesterday. Jameis finished with 3 interceptions, and they actually did put in a DTR, and he threw a pick as well. Nick Chubb also fumbled. James Prochet, he also fumbled as well. So the Browns had 6 turnovers in this game. Not a good performance by them. I mean, it's just been a lost season for them. Also, you had Myles Garrett leave the game briefly because he got poked in the eye, but he was able to come back in. Also, I wanted to bring up, so Anthony, a regular here on the GSMC Football Podcast, a few comments here. He said, I've noticed this recently with the games throughout the season. It seems like the NFL cares more about putting the best games on Sunday Night Football. They don't really care about Monday or Thursday. Well, it's kind of been like that for a while. I think it's gotten better. At least on Monday, it's gotten better a little bit, just because of the crew that they have with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. But also the Thursday night games, I think at some points this year have gotten better. Like, we've seen a couple of good ones. We've seen, the Ravens and the Bengals. We've seen the Vikings and the Rams. Like, there's been some good games. I don't think Thursday night football should be a thing. As much as it's fun to, have multiple games on during the week, I'm not a fan of it. I think you should just have the games on Sunday, and you have the Monday night game, of course, and then you can have the games on Thanksgiving, obviously. But now they're also adding the games on Christmas. It's just, I'm fine with, you got the games on Sunday, you got the games on Monday. Maybe you throw a game on Saturday. It's just, I don't know. That's just me. But he also says, it seems like a total waste then if you don't really care about the ratings of Thursday night or Monday night football. Why keep them? The games are always bad on those days. I mean, they're not always bad. And, listen, if the ratings weren't good, they wouldn't do it. They're still doing it. And especially now when ESPN, you get Troy Aikman and Joe Buck to do the games. I mean, they're not going to do away with that. And, Amazon is now, the home of Thursday Night Football and has been for the last couple of years. They're not going to do away with it. And again, if the ratings were bad, we wouldn't see these games. But it's the NFL, so there's always going to be ratings. And then also said, is there any updates on how bad the injury is for the receiver for the Dolphins? Yeah, that I'll have to look into during the break. But yeah, that was another, because I was looking at the games on the ESPN app, the fantasy app, and I saw that the game got delayed, and I was confused as to why that was the case. And then I had Red Zone on, and I saw the injury, and that was bad. That it got to the point where he had to stop the game. So I'll have to look into that during the break here. But yeah, a lot of injuries yesterday, and that was one of them too, which I will get to during the week. But yeah, no, that was a scary situation in that game. So yeah, I will. Like I said, I'll look into it as we go along here. But kind of back to what I was talking about with the Chiefs and the Browns. Yeah, sloppy game. Patrick Mahomes, though, he got hurt in this game, like I said, suffered an ankle injury. He got taken out. Now, the Browns weren't really doing anything offensively. Had they needed Mahomes to come back in, he would have came back in. But Carson Wentz finished up the game. Chiefs get the win. Like I said, I mean, Jameis Winston was not good. 16 of 25, 146 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I mean, he was just throwing the ball up for grabs in this game on 2 of the interceptions at least. But one of them was not really his fault. It hit off of Nick Chubb and then got picked off by Nick Bolton. I didn't see the DTR interception. Like I said, Nick Chubb fumbled in this game. Also, news on Nick Chubb, he broke his foot, so he's probably out for the year. Just very disappointing. Chubb really was not doing that much since he's come back from injury. And that might have been it for him with the Browns. The Browns might move off of him, possibly, and he might be going to a new team next year. And I hope if this is it for him with the Browns, I hope he does go find a new home and he's successful there. Because Nick Chubb is a good player, and I hope this is, not the beginning of the end for him. Because he was one of the best running backs in the NFL, and that injury really set him back. And it was great to see him out on the field, but you just saw that he's just not right. And now this injury here, effectively ends his season. So hopefully, he's back on the field next year, and he finds a new home. But anyways, yeah, the Browns, they did have one big play, Jerome Ford, a 62-yard touchdown. You thought maybe when that happened that the Browns were going to get back in the game, but it didn't happen. The Chiefs ended up holding on. Patrick Mahomes on the day went 19-38 for 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Carson Wentz 2 for 2 for 20 yards. Isaiah Pacheco had 32 yards on the ground. Kareem Hunt had 45 yards on the ground. Xavier Worthy had a touchdown in this game. Thought it was a forward pass. It was a backwards pass, so it counted as a run. So he had a rushing touchdown. Mahomes had 14 yards. P. Ryan had 11. Worthy actually was the leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 46 yards. DeAndre Hopkins had 5 for 36. Travis Kelce 4 for 27. Samaje P. Ryan 1 for 23. Chiefs defense, 5 sacks on the day. Harrison Butker went 0 for 1 on field goals. He shanked the chip shot field goal that he had. I think that was towards the end of the first half. But again, the weather wasn't great. Jerry Jeudy had a big day for the Browns at least. 11 receptions for 108 yards. Browns defense, no sacks of any of the quarterbacks that played for the Chiefs between Mahomes and Wentz. And they improved to 13-1 on the season. And, as for Mahomes, he was asked about his availability for Saturday's game against the Texans. So, yeah, quick turnaround because you got the Steelers and the Ravens on Saturday as well as the Chiefs and the Texans. And right now, Mahomes said it's hard to say right now. You still have the adrenaline rolling, and usually it's kind of the day after when you kind of get a good sense of it. I feel like I could have finished the game in different circumstances, but I thought the smart decision was to put Carson Wentz in, which I do agree with. He said, you just have to do what you have to do to get back, and I think that's the most important thing. And now we just get back to the rehab part, the treatment part, and try to get ourselves ready on a short week against a good football team. Now, ankle's not broken. Andy Reid said it's sore, and he'll get started on the rehab part of it as we go, and then we'll just have to see how it does down the road here. So he was removed midway through the fourth quarter. And again, that was probably the smart move because the Browns just were not doing anything. And had this game been tied, Mahomes probably stays in, but it was the smart move. Now, the Chiefs, look, they got the division all wrapped up. Right now, they got a 2-game lead on the Bills for the 1 seed. So, they're in a good spot right now where you could essentially rest Patrick Mahomes maybe for this game coming up against the Texans. I mean, we'll see. I don't want to go as far as to say, you have him sit these next 3 games because you don't want the Bills to catch up. And then, you also got the Steelers to play on the schedule. The Bills have the Patriots twice and the Jets. So the Bills could probably go 3-0 these final 3 games. The Chiefs at least, yeah, I mean the Chiefs, they got to keep winning games. Because you don't want to lose home field advantage. And they got tough games. I mean, the Texans, it's going to be a tough game. And then your next 2 games are on the road against the Steelers and the Broncos. So, they are in a tough spot with how they're going to handle Mahomes. Because, yeah, you could have him sit this game on Saturday, have him heal up, and then he comes back against the Steelers when they play next Wednesday. The thing is, though, their backup quarterback is Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz, I think, could still win you games. I think this was the best spot for him, is just being a backup to Patrick Mahomes. And this is why you brought him in case something like this happens. And, Carson Wentz, obviously his career has been up and down. And, look at where he was in 2017. And before that ACL injury. Did we think this is how his career was going to unfold as he was putting together an MVP season? No. But that's what ended up happening. And here we are years later, and now he's backing up Mahomes. So I think Carson Wentz, if he's got to start, I think he could get the job done. Now, I think if you had, Chad Henne or Blaine Gabbert that you had to play these final 3 games, it's not good. But you got Carson Wentz, and I think Carson Wentz maybe could get the job done if he has to step in. But we'll see. Andy Reid talking about Mahomes. Wanted to fight about it, but we've got a good support there behind him with Carson, and it was good to get him a few reps in there too, and let our guys hear that snap count in case he has to go. So, yeah, and then Mahomes said, I was trying to run up in the pocket, obviously 4th down, trying to make a play happen, and as I threw the ball, I kind of got hit, and I haven't seen it, but it felt like someone hit me from behind as well, and so I kind of just got rolled up on. Yeah, it looked like he was like a pretzel, kind of. Kind of happens in football. And so I tried to bounce back up, but obviously it hurt a little bit. But now we'll just have to get after the rehab part of it and try to be ready for next week. And he took some big shots yesterday. Once again, just taking a lot of hits. This offensive line, like I said, needs to be better. Needs to be better. And, we saw what happened to Mahomes in the playoff game against the Jaguars a couple years ago. It's kind of the same thing. It was a high ankle sprain. But, he played through it. And obviously the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. But, it puts the Chiefs in a tough spot, on whether they want to play Mahomes or not. Because, again, home field advantage is still up for grabs. Now, you still have the division. They could, if they somehow lost the number 1 seed, you still, would be a top 2 seed. But you want to have home field advantage because, if they could somehow clinch that and maybe you rest Mahomes, then you have the first round bye, and he gets all the time in the world to rest up. Because it is interesting. Because what if the Chiefs had clinched home field advantage already? Then you probably just have Mahomes sit these final few weeks, and he comes back for the playoffs. But he probably wants to be out there. So, and if you remember from Jaguars game, he was really, pushing to get back in. Now, eventually he did, but they had him out for a little bit. Chad Henne came in and played a little bit. So, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it throughout the week. But, these final 3 games are tough. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes gives them the best chance to win. But if Carson Wentz has to come in, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, just because he's got a proven track record of being a starter. And I think he could still start for teams in the league. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But let me know what you guys think about this game, about the Mahomes injury. Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our next break. And then we come back, we'll talk about the Seahawks-Packers game from last night, how that unfolded. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Packers-Seahawks game from last night. Packers improved to 10-4 on the season after a 30-13 victory over the Seahawks. And the Seahawks lost Geno Smith in this game, a knee injury. They took him out of the game. They put Sam Howell in. And if you guys were paying attention earlier, before the season even started, I kept saying I think Sam Howell can, push Geno Smith for that starting job and maybe take it from him. And he got his opportunity last night. Now, he did just kind of get thrown into the game, but he was not good. He was not good. The Packers defense was all over him. It was not good. So yeah, that take doesn't look good right now. But anyways, I was trying to look up if there's any updates on the Dolphins wide receiver. Grant Dubose is the receiver's name, and I didn't see anything. Oh, actually, all right. So I have it here. So the Dolphins said Dubose has been ruled out with a head injury. He's in stable condition, is being taken to a local hospital for further evaluation. Okay, so that's from yesterday. But yeah, that was such a scary situation there. And, again, we'll learn more as we move along here. But, yeah, and also I'm seeing positive feedback on another headline. So that's good. And I didn't even see, what happened on the play. I have to go back and look. Because, again, I was watching it on Red Zone when it happened. So, I wasn't I didn't see the play live, but I'll have to go back and look. But anyways, it's so hard to go from that and then, talk about, just another game here. But yeah, just a scary situation. I just hope he's all right. But anyways, with this game though, and we'll talk about that game during the week, like I said, the Texans and the Dolphins, because that was a big game for, also with that, just, the Texans and the Dolphins. The Dolphins trying to, get into, sneak into the playoffs, and the Texans, trying to clinch the AFC South as well, trying to get that wrapped up. So we'll talk about that during the week, like I said. But back to Packers Seahawks. Like I said, Sam Howell, when he had to come in, he was not good. But the Packers, to start off the game, they went right down the field. It was all Josh Jacobs for that entire drive. And he had a big first half. The Seahawks defense did a good job at shutting him down in the second half, but he had a big first half, and he's been solid for them this whole year. Another week of him scoring a touchdown. He has 12 rushing touchdowns on the season. He finished with 94 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Jordan Love made some good throws last night. A couple of throws to Romeo Doubs. The second one in the end zone that put them up 30-13. I didn't even think Romeo Doubs held on to that. I thought the ball hit the ground when I saw it live. But then they showed the replay, and Romeo Doubs was able to hold on to it. It didn't hit the ground. That was a great play by him. Getting him back is huge for this Packers offense. Christian Watson got hurt towards the end of this game, so hopefully he's okay. But the Packers. This was a good overall, all-around team win because the defense played really well last night. 7 sacks of both Geno Smith and Sam Howell playing in this game. A couple of interceptions that they got off of those two guys. Pretty much everybody contributed for the Packers offensively. Christian Watson was the leading receiver. He had 3 receptions for 56 yards. Jacobs had 4 for 42. Romeo Doubs 3 for 42 touchdowns. Jaden Reed had 5 for 34. Tucker Kraft 2 for 34. Dontavian Wicks 2 for 14. Edgerrin Cooper had an interception. Carrington Valentine had a interception as well. McManus went 3 for 3 on field goals. As for the Seahawks, Geno Smith went 15-19 for 149 yards, no touchdowns and a pick before his injury. Sam Howell, 5 for 14, 24 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Zach Charbonnet had a touchdown run in this game. The Seahawks, for a moment you thought, are they going to climb back into this and tie this game somehow? Because the Packers and Seahawks have played some crazy games over the years. And I saw the NFC Championship game was airing on the NFL Network. And I was hoping maybe if I watch it this time, the Packers will, pull out the win. But it amazes me how that game went the way it did. But yeah, so that was on. But the Packers do get the win here. Jackson Smith and Jigba, also going back to the Seahawks, 10 receptions, 83 yards. DK Metcalf only 3 for 28. Seahawks defense, no sacks of Jordan Love here. And yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye on Geno Smith's status going forward. He's going to undergo tests. But I think if, Geno Smith is out, I mean, Sam Howell will get a full week of prep to, get himself ready if he has to play against the Vikings on Sunday. But if he plays like that, yeah, the Seahawks got no chance. And with that loss last night, the Rams actually overtake the Seahawks for first place in the division. And, the way the Rams season finishes out, and, they beat the Bills and they beat the 49ers, and now you got the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. I mean, I think the Rams should win this division. They've been playing really well. I mean, they won that shootout with the Bills, and then they ended up, winning that game against the 49ers, that low-scoring game. So they're in a good spot right now. So the Seahawks, that was a tough loss for them last night. But the Packers right now, they look like they're rounding into form. Jordan Love, he's been playing really well as of late. On the season now, he's got 23 touchdowns to 11 picks. He's being smart with the football. And, I like how the Packers are playing right now. 2 of their last 3 games are at home. They got the Vikings on the road, which is a tough game. There's still an outside chance that maybe they catch up and win the division, but yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, they're 0-2 against the Lions this year. The Lions are not going to lose out. The Lions will basically have to lose out for the Packers to win the division. It's not going to happen. But right now, they're 10-4. They still haven't even clinched the playoff spot yet. But I think if they win next week, they play against the Saints, who don't have Derek Carr. Sorry, I had to hold back a sneeze. They play the Saints without Derek Carr at home on Monday night. I mean, they should win that, right? They definitely should win that. And if they do that, they'll basically be in. The Packers are going to get in. I would be shocked if they somehow didn't find a way to make the playoffs. But they're the 6th seed right now. And what's interesting is they would be playing the Buccaneers in the first round. That would be an interesting first-round matchup. So we'll see how it goes, but I really like how Jordan Love is playing. The defense played really well last night. That's a tough place to play. Also, what surprised me about last night's game is the amount of Packer fans. You heard "Go Pack Go" in Seattle. I mean, Seattle, that is like one of the toughest places to play. That crowd is one of the loudest in the league. And they were able to make some noise themselves, the Packer fans, and they're 10-4 now, and they're in a good spot. They are in a good spot. They could maybe try to finish in second place and improve their wild card positioning if they can knock off the Vikings when they play them next. But right now they're kind of locked into that 6th seed. And it's amazing, with them at 10 wins, the Vikings, we'll see what happens if they win tonight. But it's amazing how, you got these teams in the NFC North. If they were playing in any other division, they'd be in first place. Well, not the NFC East, but they were playing in the NFC South. If they were playing in, the NFC West, they'd be in first place. But nope, they are where they are, unfortunately, and that is the like I said, it's the 5th seed, or the 6th seed. Sorry, 6th seed. So, but they've been playing good. They've been playing good football. Jordan Love is healthy, The defense is playing well. Josh Jacobs is running the football. I mean, they are going to be a dangerous team when we get to the playoffs. The NFC playoffs is going to be really good. The AFC is going to have good matchups too. The playoffs are going to be good. They're going to be good. But I'm really intrigued by, some of these matchups we could potentially get. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But the Seahawks, though, I think if Geno Smith, misses time, I think they're done. I really do believe that. And it's not like Geno's had this great year. He has 14 touchdowns to 13 picks. But, I mean, if Sam Howell is going to play like that, they got no shot. Now, you got to hope that you get, Kenneth Walker back, because that'll at least help. But, yeah, no, not looking good for the Seahawks right now after losing that game. And it's amazing because they've won 4 in a row and then just one loss, and now it's like, who knows? But it's because Geno Smith got hurt. And, they got the Vikings, the Bears, and the Rams. I think they're going to lose to the Vikings, and I think they're going to lose to the Rams. The Bears, I think they could beat, but, that's a game on a Thursday night in Chicago. That's going to be a tough game. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will preview both Monday night games. We got the Vikings and the Bears tonight, as well as the Falcons and the Raiders. And we'll talk about those games and what I expect to happen. And that is how Week 15 in the NFL is going to wrap up. So make sure to stick around one final time, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Vikings-Bears matchup tonight, as well as the Falcons-Raiders. We got a doubleheader tonight, ESPN and ABC, so you don't have to worry about, having to get an app or no. Both of these games will be on TV, but they will be on, around the same time. So the Bears and the Vikings, they'll kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC, and then Falcons-Raiders, that'll kick off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. So, it's big game tonight for the Vikings and the Falcons, so they can keep pace, with the teams in their division. If the Vikings win, they could tie the Lions at the top of the NFC North. If the Falcons win, they could at least keep pace with the Buccaneers, who just are not losing now. We'll talk about their game tomorrow because I was surprised by a little bit surprised by their performance. I wasn't that surprised that they won. It was just how they won against the Chargers, because I thought that was going to be a more competitive game. It was for a little bit, but then the Buccaneers pulled away. But let's go through each game. So the Vikings and the Bears, they played each other back on November 24th. And, the Vikings, they were winning by a lot in that game. And then the Bears, they scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. They had them recover an onside kick to tie the game. They ended up losing to the Vikings in overtime 30-27. So, the Bears, they have not won a game since October 13th. And they let Matt Eberflus go. And, we saw last week, the defense just couldn't stop anything against the 49ers. And they're 4-9. And they're 7-point underdogs in this game. Sam Darnold, he has played really well. We talked about him last week, what the Vikings might do with him at the end of the season. Again, let's see how he does towards the end of the season here and into the playoffs. Because, if he plays really well, the Vikings, let's say if the Vikings won the Super Bowl, I think we might have to keep Sam Darnold next year. But I still think it's incomplete right now. We got to see how he does here, this final stretch and into the playoffs. And then I think, we'll get a good sense on what the Vikings should do. But, yeah, tonight, look, the Bears, their season's over. They have a lot of talent on this team, and I do think that they'll at least put together a better performance than they did last week against the Niners. But right now the Vikings are playing really good football. And Sam Darnold, he struggled a little bit during the year, but now he's kind of playing how he played at the beginning of the season. He has not thrown an interception since November 10th. Since the Jaguars game, all right, he has thrown 11 touchdowns to no picks. He has been on fire. And last week, he's coming off of a 5-touchdown performance against the Falcons. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison both had big games in that contest. And I expect this Vikings offense to have a good performance tonight. The Bears, it's been a challenging season for them. And I think next year, if they can get the right head coach, this could be a team that could make the playoffs. I thought they could make the playoffs possibly this year. I didn't have them making it, but I thought maybe they could because of the talent, and I thought Caleb Williams would get better as the years has gone on. And to an extent he has, but it's just, it hasn't resulted in wins. They've lost a lot of close games where, they're 4-9. They could be, let's say 7-7, and they're right there. It's just, that's just not how it's been. And they got to find the right head coach for Caleb Williams. Because I do think Caleb Williams, what he has shown at times this year, he is definitely the guy. But you got to make sure that, you surround them with the right talent, and I think they have. Because there are some good offensive players on this team. I don't know what's going to happen with Keenan Allen after the season. I don't know if they're gonna keep him. They might, but Rome Odunze, he was good at least last week for them against the 49ers, had a couple of touchdowns. DJ Moore, these last couple of weeks, he's been looking good. Actually, I don't think he had he didn't have a big game against the Niners, but he's been doing better. Since they made the change from by letting go of Shane Waldron as the offensive coordinator, DJ Moore has been better. But we'll see what happens. But I expect the Vikings to win this game tonight. Sam Darnold is playing some really good football right now. I'm going to say that the Vikings win. I think they put up 30 points. I think the final score is like 31-20, something like that. With them being at home, and again, Sam Darnold is playing really good right now. I like the Vikings in this spot and get themselves to 12-2. Now, would it surprise me if this game is close? No, because the Bears got embarrassed last week. And maybe they play a little bit better here, or maybe they just mailed it in. Maybe, Matt Eberflus is gone. They're kind of just like, all right, let's just get to the end of the season. But, I do worry about Caleb Williams a little bit in this game just because, the Vikings offense or the Vikings defense can definitely get after him. And, that offensive line for the Bears has not been great. That is also another area where they need to improve is the offensive line. So we'll see what happens. But I like the Vikings to win by a couple of scores, and tie the Lions for the division. And then for the second game here, we got the Falcons and the Raiders. Now, the Raiders will be without Max Crosby. He's getting surgery. He is going to be out for the rest of the season. I think he's getting surgery. I think it was, what was it, on his ankle? Hold on. But he's going to be out for the rest of the year. And look, the Falcons have just not been playing well. Kirk Cousins has not been playing well. Yeah, season-ending ankle surgery for Max Crosby. So at least Kirk Cousins is not going to have to deal with him. Also, I don't know what the status is. Another player is Aiden O'Connell. Is he going to start tonight, or is it going to be Desmond Ridder? Right now, I think it's still up in the air as to who is going to be the starter. Because it looked like Aiden O'Connell was possibly going to be out for the year, and then all of a sudden it was, no, he might actually be able to play for this game. So, still hasn't practiced, still questionable for the game tonight. So, if it's not Aiden O'Connell, it's going to end up being Desmond Ridder, who used to play for the Falcons. So, could we possibly see a Desmond Ridder revenge game? We'll have to wait and see. But I think the Falcons, they should win this game tonight. They should win this game tonight. The Raiders, you lost Max Crosby. I mean, Kirk Cousins should be able to have a good day against this banged-up Raiders defense without their best player. I think Bijan Robinson should have a big game tonight. He's had a great season for them. This, I think, is a get-right game for them. But you never know, because Kirk Cousins has not been great. You know, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in quite some time. You know, it has been a tough year for him. It's been a tough year for him, and we'll see what happens. Look, the Falcons could still salvage their season. You know, their season's not over by any means. You know, they kind of have a soft finish to their schedule here with the Raiders. You got the Giants coming up. I mean, the Commanders is going to be a tough game, and then you got the Panthers to finish up the year. So, you know, they could go out there and win out. You have the talent to do it. You know, in these final 4 games here, I think they should definitely win tonight, though. You know, and the Falcons' defense, this could be a get-right game for them. You know, really, what they have to key on is Brock Bowers and try to get some of these other players to beat. I mean, Jacoby Myers, you know, he's a good receiver, but, you know, I don't look at him as, you know, like an elite receiver. You know, Brock Bowers is the guy that the Falcons defense has to key in on. Let these other guys beat you. And also in the running game, Raiders have not run the football well this year. So, you know, I'm curious to see how they come out tonight. But, I mean, this is a game I think the Falcons should win pretty easily. You know, maybe it's like a 27-10 game or 27-13, something like that. I think Kirk Cousins will throw a touchdown pass tonight. I think he has to. I mean, it's if he doesn't, if the Falcons lose this game, then I think you really got to consider maybe moving off of Kirk Cousins. And that might be a bit of an overreaction. But if Kirk Cousins goes out there and plays poorly against a banged-up Raiders defense, and Desmond Ridder's possibly the starting quarterback, then I think you really got to consider, hey, Michael Penix is going to be the starter next year. Because, or maybe even right now. I mean, if the Falcons got eliminated from playoff contention with a game to go, then maybe you start Michael Penix. But I don't know. They're still in it. The Falcons are still in it. If they could pick up a win tonight, you get back to 500, and then you go from there. But I'm curious to see how Kirk Cousins plays tonight. Because, again, it's also on the road. Anything can happen. But if he plays poorly tonight, it's not good. It's not good. But I expect the Falcons to win. I think they cover. But we'll see. You know, the Falcons defense, like I said, you got to, take Brock Bowers out of the game, do the best you can at limiting him because he's had an incredible rookie season, and try to get some of these other guys to beat you. So, let me know what you guys think, though. But yeah, so I have the Vikings winning and I have the Falcons winning. So, and I think most people probably have that too. But we'll see what happens tonight. Because again, the opposite could happen. Probably the opposite will happen with the spread pool because I have the Vikings covering and the Falcons covering. the Bears I could see covering that 7-point spread. The Raiders just, I mean, they're too banged up. But, you know, Kirk Cousins hasn't played well. And crazier things have happened. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, though. Let me know what you guys think, though. Who do you have winning these matchups? Let me know in the comments. That is pretty much it for the show for today. Again, apologize for the technical issues beforehand. It was a small setback. It ended up not really being a big deal, but that usually doesn't happen. So that's happened, a couple times since I started doing this, but not that often. It's pretty rare. So, yeah, no, another week in the NFL has come and gone. We also got the college football playoffs starting this week. We'll get into the rest of the Week 15 slate tomorrow. We'll talk about some of the other games I didn't get to. We'll talk about the Dolphins-Texans game. Actually get into talking about the Jets a little bit because they made some news, but they also picked up a win yesterday. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Buccaneers. We'll recap these games as well. Yeah, so we got some stuff on tap for tomorrow, so make sure to tune in for that. But yeah, make sure to check out all the other shows as well, and leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the games tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the